All right, good evening. I have 6 o'clock. So I am going to call to order the public hearing in KCC docket number 26 EKCE 148 STG. My name is Andrew French. I'm chair of the Kansas Corporation Commission, joined by my colleagues Dwight D. Keene, sitting here to my left, and Commissioner Annie Keither is joining us on Zoom tonight. To make participation in this hearing as convenient as possible, we're holding this hearing in person as well as virtually through Zoom, and we are also live streaming the hearing on YouTube. This proceeding was initiated by Evergy to request approval of a transmission line siting permit for a 345 kV line of approximately 133 miles in length. The proposed transmission line would begin at the Buffalo Flats substation near Garden Plain, Kansas, and end at the Delaware substation near Delaware, Oklahoma. The line would be located in Sedgwick, Sumner, Cowley, and Chautauqua counties. So for tonight, our hearing will operate in two parts. First, the first part of the hearing will be just an informational session. You are going to hear brief presentations from Evergy explaining its application, and then also a presentation from the Kansas Corporation Commission's technical staff explaining their role and the KCC's role in the line siting process. After those presentations, there will be an opportunity to ask questions about the application and the line siting process. At the conclusion of that Q&A, we will take a short break, and just to emphasize, that'll be completely separate from the public comment session. So the second part of the hearing will be your opportunity to make public comments on the record for the commission to consider in this docket. If you'd like to address the commission with comments, please complete the sign-up sheet with the commission's public affairs staff outside. If you have not already done so, that's what I'll be pulling names from. And for those online, we'll be looking at raised hands. So in addition to live comments made tonight, the commission is also accepting public comments on our website, by mail, or by calling our public affairs office. Comments will be accepted through 5 p.m. on January 23rd, and we do like to emphasize that all of the comments, no matter how they're made, do carry equal weight with the commission. And if you need to leave tonight's meeting early, you aren't ready to make a comment, or you're just watching on YouTube, we do hope you'll consider one of the alternative methods to make a comment. Multiple times throughout tonight's program, you're going to see information on the ways to make those comments. The literature outside also provides that information. If you fail to take a picture or don't catch it, don't worry. Somebody will get you the information on how to make a comment. So we will begin with the informational session. We're going to start with Evergy, and our first presenter will be Steve Vetch, Vice President of Transmission with Evergy.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me in the back okay? Yep, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Steve Vetch. I'm the Vice President of Transmission at Evergy. My responsibilities include construction, maintenance, and operation of Evergy's transmission system, which include oversight of the construction of the Buffalo Flats to Delaware transmission line. To my right is Andy Rechek. Andy is the Senior Director of Large Projects at Evergy. He's responsible for all of our large projects, including this one. And on my left is Cale Lovelace. Cale is the project manager directly assigned to siting and building the transmission line. Also in the front row here, we've got what I'll call a panel of experts in engineering, real estate, and permitting. If you have a question for us that we're not able to answer tonight, we're hopeful that our colleagues in the front row can lend a hand and get all of the questions that we might have here answered tonight while we're all here. So could you go ahead one more slide, please? And maybe one more. Very good. Brief background on the project. We, Evergy, are a member of the Southwest Power Pool, or it's often referred to as SPP. You may have heard of that. They're a regional transmission organization responsible for grid management in Kansas and 13 other Midwestern states. The SPP coordinates the flow of electricity across the entirety of the 14-state transmission network. Planning the transmission network in SPP is done through a process called Integrated Transmission Planning, or ITP. The 2024 ITP identified reliability projects needed to resolve system overloads and voltage issues and prevent future load shed during winter storm conditions. Next slide, please. And yep. Yeah, one more, please. Nope, one back, sorry. The SPP identified multiple individual projects needed to resolve overloading and voltage instability in southern Kansas and northeast Oklahoma, which were present during the winter conditions in 2021 and in 2022. And one of these projects is the Buffalo Flats to Delaware 345 kV line. The line is a 163-mile 345 kV transmission line extending from southern Kansas to northeast Oklahoma. When the line is complete, it creates an interconnection between Evergy's transmission system in Wichita and AEP's transmission system in Oklahoma, giving them access to our resources and us access to them. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Cale Lovelace to discuss how over the past 10 months, he and his team have gone about determining our preferred route, or what we often call our least intrusive route. So with that, Cale. Yeah, sorry. Oh, here you go.
All right. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So Steve mentioned Cale Lovelace. I'm a project manager in our large transmission construction group. My job is basically to take a high-level scope for a project, put together a project team, detail that scope out, develop project schedules, budgets, make sure we're meeting those targets, and also manage the construction contracts and some of the large material procurement projects. For this project, it's unique. We don't build a whole lot of 133-mile lines, 163 total mile lines. For this project, we had to perform a routing study to get to point A from point A to B. First step in that routing study was defining our endpoints. On the western end is the Buffalo Flats substation. We knew that. It's in between Goddard and Garden Plain. On the east end of the line, we had to determine an interconnection point. Working with AEP, we collaborated with them to determine the best possible location for both of us to cross the border and have an interconnect, a tie-in point. So, the result of that, you go from the west side of the Wichita down towards Delaware, Oklahoma. You're going to cross through Chautauqua, Cowley, Sumner, and Sedgwick counties, specifically southwest Sedgwick. Total study area included about 3,200 square miles. Next slide, please. And this is a pretty good description. We set eastern boundaries, northern boundaries, and western boundaries, as well as southern boundaries. Next slide, please. So next step, we have our study area developed. Next step is defining our constraints, and constraints are just simply put areas where we can't put a transmission line. First and foremost, homes, cemeteries, airports, reservoirs, wetlands, and then we identify infrastructure such as center pivots, things like that, among many, many other different items that we really try to avoid. Once we have those constraints identified, we develop corridors where we could potentially put a transmission line. And throughout this whole process, next slide, please. We ended up developing a routing network that was darn near 900 miles, 195 different segments that had over 1.1 million possibilities to get from the west side of Wichita down to the interconnection point that was close to Caney. Next slide, please. So once we developed that routing network, we went out to seek public feedback. We held open houses in Sedan and Winfield in the last week of July, and then in Wellington and in Goddard in the first week of August. We invited all landowners on the whole routing network. That ended up being about 4,500 parcels and around 2,400 total landowners for that. A lot of landowners own multiple parcels. Everybody within 1,000 feet of the routing, or within 1,000 feet of our proposed route segments. At those open houses, we provided questionnaires to all the attendees and seeked feedback of what was most important in our design of the transmission line and our routing of the transmission line. Examples of that are proximity of the transmission line to your home, proximity to your farm equipment, proximity to roads and being able to parallel roads, such like that. I think we had about 8 or 10 different criteria out there that we asked for public feedback on. And then we really utilized all that. We took your feedback. We took average scores on all those for everybody who provided input, and we used that to provide a weighting system for all of our citing criteria. Next slide, please. So we had to develop these route scoring factors. The KCC has 11 basic scoring factors that is in their protocols that we use. We use an additional, 20 or so scoring factors to identify other things that may not have been caught on that list of 11. But yeah, we use your feedback. We weight each and every one of those items with a score from 1 to 10. Some of these examples being residential proximity, center pivots, could be land use, and total length of the line. It could be environmental impact, all sorts of different items. Each factor has a weighted score total for that individual factor. Next slide, please. So in the end, we ran this analysis on 1.1 million different combinations of routes to get from point A to B. Each factor scored, and we got a total score off of that. And basically it was scored opposite of what you would think. A negative score is good in that it has low impact on your property. Positive impact or a positive score, which in this case, it ranged from negative 105, 106 to positive 115. On the positive end of that spectrum, that means it has a negative impact on you. We scored the entire network, took our top 10 routes, and those, range somewhere between negative 103 and negative 106, kind of in that area. We reviewed all those top routes thoroughly. We tried to maximize areas where we could parallel transmission lines. That was some of the feedback we got on those questionnaires. Next slide, please. And yeah, and this is a little confusing to look at, but the yellow routes are our entire routing network. The purple routes, you'll see a couple of variations in there. All of our top 10 routes were along this purple corridor with slight variations on the west end and slight variation kind of in the middle. And then on the far northwest corner, we had some variations up there. So from this, we looked at each and every one of these routes individually, very, very closely, made sure that there wasn't anything that stood out that could have been missed. And we chose our preferred route. Next slide, please. So yeah, as you can see, we go through southwest Sedgwick County, pretty much from central northwest Sumner County to the southeast Sumner County, across the southern half of Cowley, and then across the southern half of Chautauqua County as well. Next slide, please. So what are we here for today? For any transmission line in Kansas over 200 kV and over 5 miles in length, we have to get a siting permit from the Kansas Corporation Commission. What we did, we submitted our siting permit application on November 14th. And if everything goes well, we aim to have approval of that siting permit and have that in hand by May 14th of this year. And additionally, I left this out earlier. So Burns and McDonnell is a world-class engineering firm headquartered out of Kansas City. They're frankly the best routing study firm in the entire country, and they actually do some international routing studies. We utilize them for our team lead to help us develop the routing network, help us develop the scoring metrics, and help us score everything fully. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so what comes next? So if we do receive approval from the KCC and receive our siting permit, we plan, and I say we intend to design and build the line from west to east. So we would start in Sedgwick County, and it would be, kind of think of it in segments, the Sedgwick County section, the Sumner County section, Cowley, and then Chautauqua. We would plan on designing and building west to east. If we get approval in May, then we would look to start field surveying out on private property in June. And we would have landowner notifications. We would contact you prior to entering and work out access routes and make sure we have contact there. We would be engineering the line starting this summer, and engineering would continue through basically the end of 2028. Easement acquisitions, we could start as early as this fall, if everything goes really, really well on the front end. And that would continue basically through the end of 2028. Vegetation clearing, first time we're getting out there and actually making, I'd say improvements, but clearing vegetation and working on our access. That would really be the end of 27 through probably summer 29. Line construction starting again on the west end, spring of 28 through the end of 29, and then easement restoration. So cleaning up and seeding where we need to, probably summer of 28 through, let's say spring of 2030 or so. Next slide, please. And then here's just some project information. You guys can reach out to us, email us at buffaloflats@evergy.com. You can call us on the phone number listed right there. The webpage listed takes you directly to the Evergy page. From there, you can find a link to the interactive map that'll show you the entire route, and you can zoom in and look at it in its entirety. And then you can also find a link to the KCC docket page. And then if you'd like to, or if you know how to use a QR code, then go ahead and scan that guy, and that'll take you straight to the Evergy project page. So, yeah, that's conclusion.
All right, thank you. We are going to now turn to the Kansas Corporation Commission staff for their presentation, and we will have Madison Hain, litigation counsel, representing the staff.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? My name is Madison Hain, and I'm an attorney that works at the Kansas Corporation Commission. Joining me at this table is Justin Grady, who is the Director of Utilities at the KCC. My presentation tonight will provide a high-level overview of what the Commission is, how it operates, and then some details about Evergy's application to construct a new transmission line known as the Buffalo Flats to Delaware project. The Kansas Corporation Commission is a state agency headed by 3 commissioners. The commissioners collectively act as a body in deciding matters that come before them. The current commissioners are Chair Andrew French, Commissioner Dwight Keene, and Commissioner Annie Keither. The commissioners are appointed by the governor, and they serve 4-year staggered terms. The commission has jurisdiction to oversee a number of industries, including electric, natural gas, and telecommunications. To assist the commission in this role, the commissioners employ a staff of professionals who are available to provide guidance and input. There is procedure in place at the commission to determine the merits of the cases that come before them. Administrative hearings at the commission look very similar to a trial that you would see in a district court. In those cases, commissioners act as judges. They hear and weigh the evidence, witnesses testify before them, and then they issue orders that can be appealed to higher courts. The commission's technical staff, who are my clients, act as a party to each case before the commission. Staff develop and defend their own independent positions, recognizing that their duty is owed to the state of Kansas and the general public. This slide is a visualization of how this is set up. At the top are the 3 commissioners. In a formal proceeding like this line setting application, different parties enter appearances in the case. This includes the utility, the commission's technical staff, and numerous interveners who represent a variety of interests. Interveners in any case could be landowners, other electric utilities who are affected by the construction of a transmission line, including other entities. Now that I've provided an overview of the commission and commission staff's roles, I want to highlight a few points about the specific application before the commission in this case. On November 14th, 2025, Evergy filed an application seeking commission approval of a siting permit to construct a new approximately 133-mile, 345 kV transmission line proposed to travel through Sedgwick, Sumner, Cowley, and Chautauqua counties. The public can access Evergy's full application and all associated pre-filed testimony on the commission's website, and I'll provide more details about how you can do so at the end of my presentation. If you could actually back up to the previous slide, that would be helpful. As I mentioned, yeah, that's fine. As I mentioned, commission technical staff are state of Kansas employees that have a tremendous amount of professional knowledge and training in fields including accounting, economics, engineering, and financial analysis. During proceedings before the commission, staff advocates on behalf of the general public, which is another way of saying that their job is to balance the interests of all utility customers, the long-term health of the utility, and the state of Kansas. Commission staff has the challenging job of objectively evaluating all opinions in this case, and then providing an independent, neutral, and balanced recommendation that furthers the public interest of the state as a whole. As the representatives for Evergy described, they have already selected the route that it is looking for commission approval to build a transmission line along. They've provided a map with a yellow line that illustrates the proposed route of the proposed transmission line. Evergy selected this route after it held multiple open house sessions throughout 2025 and received input from landowners and residents located in the vicinity of the potential route, as well as after receiving input from state and federal agencies and other public interest groups. In its application and accompanying testimony, Evergy represented that the proposed transmission line has several benefits. The first of these benefits includes addressing past load shed events, like those experienced across much of the country during winter storms Elliott and Uri, and to address voltage concerns that take place during these severe winter weather events. An ancillary benefit of the line would be to relieve congestion and levelize energy prices. Finally, a benefit of the line would be to add resiliency benefits to the interconnected transmission system. Now that Evergy's application for this proposed transmission line has been filed, commission staff is undergoing the process of conducting a thorough independent review of the proposal. During this review, staff reviews the routing study and determines if the process used sound reasoning to determine the proposed route and if all necessary factors were considered. Staff also reviews the potential impacts of the route and then gives their final recommendation regarding the proposal. After staff completes their investigation, they will submit written testimony that indicates their position. Again, staff's role is not to help one party over another, but to provide an independent assistance to the commissioners to balance competing interests and evaluate the total impact of the application on the public interest. After staff conducts its investigation and files its expert recommendation to the commission, it is ultimately up to the three commissioners to make the final decision, taking all of the evidence in the record before them into consideration. The commission is the ultimate decision maker regarding the necessity for and the reasonableness of the location of the proposed route of the transmission line. Kansas statutes require that the commissioners consider the benefit to both consumers in Kansas and consumers outside the state and economic development benefits in Kansas. In the summer of 2023, the commission opened a docket asking for staff and any interested stakeholders to investigate a set of principles and priorities to be used in future line siting proceedings taking place in Kansas, like this one. The goal of this investigation docket was for the commission to ultimately approve a set of criteria that would be used to guide their determination of the reasonableness and necessity of any given line siting application. The purpose of this slide in this presentation is to highlight the fact that this investigation was a multi-year process that the commission undertook to guide their process for reviewing line siting applications. In early 2025, the commission issued an order that adopted guidelines for transmission line siting criteria and priorities. This order is a precedential document, and the public can view that order on the commission's website. The remaining deadlines in this docket are shown on the screen here. Under the current schedule, the public comment period will end at 5 p.m. on January 23rd. So if you intend to submit a written comment in this docket, you must submit your comment before that date or by that date. Staff appreciates and encourages public comment on this matter. Staff and other interveners will file written testimony on the commission's website by January 29th. The next slide will explain how you can access that pre-filed written testimony on the commission's website. On February 3rd, the parties will have the opportunity to file cross-answering testimony. And on February 9th, Evergy will have the opportunity to file testimony in rebuttal to that previously filed testimony. The commission will hold an evidentiary hearing from March 11th through March 12th, and it will offer a live stream of that hearing on the commission's YouTube page for those who are interested in viewing that. and a commission order deciding this matter will be issued by May 13th of this year. Finally, I want to leave you with the information on how you can submit a public comment in this docket or follow the proceedings of this case on the commission's website. I'll leave the screen up for a moment in case you'd like to take a picture or write down any of this information. Again, the first way that you can make a comment is by speaking here tonight, by either asking a question or providing a comment during the comment period. Additionally, you can submit written comments to our public affairs office. You can also follow these proceedings on our website by going to the docket filings tab and entering the docket number. In this case, the docket number is 26 EKCE 148 STG. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We look forward to hearing your comments.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hain. Okay. As I mentioned before, we will now have an opportunity for anybody in attendance to ask questions of either Evergy about their application or the KCC staff about the process that they use to evaluate these applications. And yeah, I can't stress enough, this is distinct from the public comment session. So if you've got a comment, a statement you want to make, it's important that you hold that for the second part. This is for questions to clarify something about the application or about the process. We will now begin that question and answer session. And for those here in the room, I believe we have a microphone on this side of the room. I think that's the only microphone. So if you've got questions, just start gravitating toward that microphone and you can form a line if you'd like. If there are folks online on Zoom that would like to ask a question, you can use the raise hand feature, which is under the react button. And I will keep an eye out on Zoom for raised hands, and we will alternate between the room and Zoom as long as we've got questions. So go ahead and move toward the microphone if you have a question in the room or online, raise a hand. Well, we'd like you to to the people online. Thank you.
How does the KCC get its funding?
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Grady. I'm the Director of Utilities Division. The KCC is a fee-funded agency, so we charge our direct time for whatever work it is that we do. We just charge our direct time to the utilities for which that are filing an application. So, Madison's and I's time tonight is going to be charged to the applicant in this case. That's the way it works. I mean, we're not a fee-funded agent, or we are a fee-funded agency. We're not funded by the state general fund.
So not publicly funded?
We are publicly funded, but it comes through the utilities themselves. We bill them for whatever our time is.
So the commission is paid for by the utility companies?
Well, we're state of Kansas employees, but the funding that supports our agency comes from the companies that we regulate. I mean, that's a pretty common model in regulatory agencies across this country.
But not publicly funded?
What I mean, I've answered the question. It's
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got a question online. Travis McMinnville.
Yeah, I've got a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question about the route. Is now the proper time to ask that, or is it in the other portion?
This is the time for questions. The second portion will be a time for statements. So if you've got a question, now's your chance.
Okay, so we weren't aware of the feedback session that was held this summer. So we didn't attend that, but just based on what you're saying on how the route was done. So this route affects two pieces of our land, and the route is running right on our homestead. And I don't see how that could have gotten approved during this process of how it affects different things with homes and sheds and all that if it's literally sitting right on my front yard.
So yeah, when we developed the routing network, kind of like I mentioned earlier, we found constraints and tried to, avoided those as best as we possibly could. And really tried to avoid everything as best as possible. It's a 133-mile line. There are going to be some spots that are just unavoidable. If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to maybe speak to you outside of this so we can look at a map and look at your property specifically.
Yeah, I think there's better ways to do it. I don't think that,
I'd be happy to meet with you outside of this and we can take a look at it specifically and see if we can figure something out or work through it, explain it to you a little better.
All right, we're going to go back to in the room and just start with your name.
Yes, my name is Jason Brewer, Arkansas City. And I have about 5 questions that come to mind here. First of all, you talked about there were factors used to determine the route, and there were you had a laundry list of those, maybe about 8 to 12 of those. Were those factors weighted in any manner, or was it just equal weighting to each of those factors?
No, those factors were weighted from 1 to 10 based on public feedback. And then there were, really, we had about 30 factors that we utilized here, some of them being more specific environmental factors. But yeah, the factors we received public feedback on weighted on a scale of 1 to 10.
And that weighting, I would imagine certain factors like proximity to residences, would that carry a higher weighting than some other factors?
Much higher, correct.
And so on that weighting, was it weighted county by county or as the whole, all counties together?
All counties together.
So what are the economic benefits, the economic development benefits that were mentioned in the slide?
You're moving to a kind of a new subject area and we've got a pretty good line. Why don't we go to the next person in line and you can, well, no, we can, I just want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to ask a question. So you can feel free to just go get back at the back of the line and let the next person go.
It's not efficient, but we'll do it that way.
He can speak.
If everybody in line wants you to keep going, that's fine.
If you don't mind, start throwing stuff at me, I'll go ahead and just ask a few more.
You're okay. If the line's fine with you going, that's fine.
All right. So what are the economic development benefits of this line for Cowley County?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So the line came out of the reliability model at SPP. It did not come out of an economic model. The driver of the line is to ensure that we don't have a induced rolling blackout or interruptions in the power service that we're in control of, or worse, that we have interruptions in the power service that we don't have control of. When you look at the cost of the line, and Lisa, keep me straight on this, I think in Kansas, for Kansas customers of Evergy, the cost of the line was in the neighborhood of about $3.50 per year per customer if your average use was about 1,000 kilowatts per month. So the economic hurdle of the line, if there are any, which I think there are because it opens up more cost-effective resources to reach our customers than would be available absent the line. So it's kind of a twofold benefit where the grid gets a lot more reliable and the grid gets more efficient.
So the efficiency and reliability, though, that would not necessarily involve decreases in the rates charged for Evergy customers.
Yeah, so I would say it like this, and I don't know exactly what the future benefits of the line might be from an economic standpoint, but if the fuel that is used in the future, because the line was put into service, created more than $3.50 per year in value for a customer that uses 1,000 kilowatts per month, then the line would have a positive economic value to the customers. If it was less than $3.50 per year per customer that uses 1,000 kilowatts, it wouldn't.
Do the counties wherein the transmission line passes, do they receive taxes on the transmission lines themselves?
No.
As the transmission lines, is there a setback provision? They're supposed to be so many feet back from a boundary of a property?
I want to back up to your previous question on the taxes. So is your question on the property taxes? Is your property taxes on your easement going to be, is it going to be decreased because we got an easement on it, or?
No, my question, at least the intent is that I understand with like the wind turbines and those things that those counties received a direct economic benefit from those. I didn't know if there was going to be a direct economic benefit to Cowley County of having the transmission lines go through the county in the form of taxes.
Yep, local sales tax, basically during the construction and material acquisition periods. But beyond that, I'm not aware of any.
But you're talking about sales tax and materials that are purchased in Cowley County?
Sales tax on materials that are delivered to Cowley County or Chautauqua County or Sumner County or Sedgwick County. Yep,
So the sales taxes will be charged based on the materials that are delivered on site.
correct.
The other thing I had was there was mentioning that there would be surveying on the private property beginning potentially as early as this summer. Is there any kind of a compensable payout pre-easement for those folks to be surveying upon these properties?
So I can't exactly cite the exact state statute, but we have the rights to go out and basically recover monuments, section corners, quarter section corners, those types of things. If we need to work out some access in that manner, then we may go there, but I don't think we're targeting any compensation for survey access.
Okay, so my understanding then from that answer is that you believe there to be statutory authority that would permit Evergy to have these surveyors come upon these properties pre-easement.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I don't think there's any hands online anymore. So just next in the room. And just start with your name, please. Thank you.
Yes, my name's Todd Allen. In the design of the routing of this, you mentioned houses, barns, farm machinery. Was there any consideration given to the oil and gas development that's going through this general area and the impedance of future development? Or was it, and possibly the damage to the landowner who isn't able to, and mineral owner to get their minerals developed because of your highline and your easements?
Yes, we did site out active pump jacks, more or less, in well fields, and did everything we could to avoid them for active areas. We have not assessed any future damages to those sites, and we may need to speak offline and look a little bit more detailed in the specific area that you're looking at.
Okay.
But yeah, we sited out pump jacks at that time.
You cited the pump jacks, but you gave no consideration to the development of the land now and in the future,
Specifically for oil and gas?
because there'll be setbacks to the easements, which encumber the drilling rigs, the production, the roads, the pipelines, everything that goes into developing oil and gas. You gave no consideration to any of that, you're telling me. You gave what was existing, but nothing now and in the future to benefit the mineral owner.
Correct.
All right, and staying in the room. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mary Kate Jackson, and I had a question with the restoring the areas that you guys disturbed to put in this line. What objective standards will be used to determine whether the land restoration is successful, and will restoration, I am having trouble here, be performed if standards are not met after the first year? So we're a heavy ag-based community, ranching, farmland. You are projecting possible multiple years of disturbing this land. What kind of compensation will these farmers and ranchers see? And will they have a say on what fixes their land after? Because if they run horses on a land, you can't just put fescue grass because it grows good. It will kill pregnant mares.
Yeah.
Well, it'll kill their foals, and it hurts our crop later on down the road.
Yeah, we have a couple different options when it comes to restoration. First thing I want to make clear is the restoration compensation is separate from the easement acquisition up front. It occurs on the back end due to actual damages. We do a couple different avenues there. One is we will offer to utilize our contractors to restore the damages. We have to agree to get it to as good of condition or better than it was before, and we will photograph the route. You're obviously can photograph your property and use that for comparison. The other option is if people want to go out and work with their own contractor and get some proposals for restoration, we will work directly with the landowners and give them options to provide monetary compensation for them to do the restoration themselves.
Okay, and if further down the road, if there is any kind of issue that was to occur from damages, whether it be maybe tracks that didn't get enough of a wall to lead into our water sources and we see erosion, who would be the point of contact to get those corrected in the future?
It would be our real estate team who is here in the front row, and they will be the ones out doing the restoration settlements and meeting with the landowners on site. And they would be the follow-up. But yeah, if erosion develops because the vegetation didn't establish deep enough to prevent it, we would come back and take care of that erosion or do more additional compensation to address that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, still no hands online, so just continue here in the room.
I need a show of hands. How many of you own land that this is going to affect on a stage? You know what? There's an old saying that it's easy to put the decision-making into people's hands that the decision's not going to affect. And that's where we are right now.
Go ahead.
I'm Alan Croom. I'm a commissioner here in Cowley County, District 3. Been here for 18 years serving on the board, and go back to taxes. You guys say you pay no property taxes on this. Am I mistaken? I was told today, I did a little research with some people, our clerk and some other people, Evergy South, $10 billion of assets. Not in Cowley County, but Evergy South. So these power lines going through here, you guys own the poles, the lines. Am I correct?
Correct.
Why do you not pay property taxes on these lines and poles? It's a very expensive property. You have hundreds of millions of dollars of product going through these lines every day. All of us work for a living.
Yeah.
In one way, shape, or form, we own property. We pay property taxes on everything we have. I feel it's completely fair that you guys pay property taxes. Why is that not?
Yeah, I'm going to ask one of our other people here because we do pay property taxes.
On an assessed value that's a tenth of what you have in it, sir. Am I correct?
I'm gonna,
Yeah. Hey, Cole Bailey, if you want to meet with us, we can talk.
No,
specifics of the,
I'm talking on a public forum right now, and I want the question answered, sir.
you want to know how much we pay in property
No,
taxes?
I want the percentage. If you own $10 billion in Evergy South, what's the percentage of property tax you pay on that? It's on an assessed value of a tenth of that. And is Cowley County going to see a dime of property taxes for these lines going through them? A dime.
I don't know the answer right now.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
I can help, I think. These lines.
You know, when we build a house or something or buy a piece of property, we find out what the taxes are going to cost us. I think, guys, this is a stretch. You know, you're going through generational land, guys, that people have lived their whole lives on these things. You guys, if it's not paying these property owners that have this property and have had it for generations of these families, guys, at least pay the taxes to the county.
I'm going to have the KCC staff.
I can try to
talk
help.
about property taxes for a second.
I can try to help. I mean, we can do our best to try to answer your question. A property tax, a brand new transmission line in the state of Kansas has a 10-year property tax exemption, but then they will pay property taxes on that transmission line. And my understanding, I'm not a property tax expert. We don't calculate those taxes at the KCC. It's through a different agency. It's through the Department of Revenue. It's a formula that's set by the state of Kansas for utility property. But those taxes do get, I know Evergy pays property taxes to Cowley County, and it won't, there's a delay. There's a 10-year delay because of that's the state of the law, but they will pay property taxes on that transmission line that goes through Cowley County for the 60, 70, 80 years that the transmission line will be expected to be in existence. In terms of, what percentage of the assessed value, I'm sorry, that's just not our expertise. That's a different state agency that controls the assessment of property taxes for utility property.
Well, the taxes, it's just ridiculous to me to own the amount of property that these are paying. Who gives the 10-year tax exemption? Because the county, when a new customer, a new business comes into the county, it has to come in front of the board and we say yay or nay, whether we think that's going to be an impact to the county, whether we give them that tax exemption. Where's that exemption coming from?
That's state law. There's currently a state law that
Well,
transmission.
we need some legislation to fix that, guys, because that's not fair.
Yeah.
That is absolutely not fair. This county is so dependent on revenue, and we have no way to get revenue other than the tax money of these people here. And you know how nice it would be to have a company that's making billions of dollars off the product that's going through their lines to pay their share of the tax? That's all I'm saying.
We're staying here in the room, so just go ahead and again, begin with your name.
Yeah, Cody Adams. During your presentation, you guys mentioned multiple times about this benefiting during winter storms. Are there any connection points along this 133 miles that actually help Cowley County during a winter storm?
Yeah, right now this is proposed to be a continuous line. There will be no connection points from Buffalo Flats down into Oklahoma. What is different here is these 345 lines are kind of like the interstate system for the electrical power. So when we think of, interstate systems, you don't have one here directly, but if you order something, it probably comes down Interstate 35 before it comes to Winfield or wherever to get delivered. It's the same thing with the power that comes down here. Most of your power that you see on a day-to-day basis goes through one of these 345 lines into the Wichita area, and then into 138 kV or 69 kV lines out to both Evergy customers and the rural electric cooperatives and associations throughout the area. So,
okay, so where is your end goal to help this power? I mean, where's it going? Or who's going to benefit from this?
it depends on the day. KCC can comment on this too, but some days the power will be flowing from Oklahoma up to Kansas, which would then be flowing out into communities like this. I'm sure there's other days the power will be flowing from Wichita, Buffalo Flats area down into Oklahoma. It's down by the Tulsa area where the next substation is on this site, where power could be taken off of or put onto the line. So.
All right, stand in the room.
I'm Dane Horsch, and I have a series of questions to also. They should be simple. They should be yes or no questions. First off, is Evergy a for-profit organization?
Yes.
Are you publicly traded?
Yes.
Do you farm?
No.
Then why are you guys, when you, I'll get getting ahead of myself. So, when you guys are signing leases, do you hire a third party to come around and sign the leases?
Are you referring to
Your landman, are they third party?
Yes, we use contract field agents, correct?
All right. So, do you pay them bonuses for, if they come in underneath a certain amount?
Nope. Yeah, we pay them day rate. Yeah, it's
You pay what?
day rate.
You don't, there's no bonuses if they come in
No.
So, I've been told that this is a $498 million project. What percentage of this goes to the landowners?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I need to look at our latest cost estimate, but I could follow up with you on that one.
Talking to the people around here tonight, I've talked to people that said when they signed their leases, they got anywhere from $2,000 to close to $200,000 per lease. What's fair and equitable about that? And all of us people here tonight, none of us are happy about what we're getting. But how do we do this to where it's fair for me, myself, my neighbor to the north of me, my neighbor to the south of me? Why are we all signing contracts individually? Why are we not saying we're paying a percentage of this? And the Evergy we've already established Evergy does not farm. So why are we pricing our property at farm ground when you guys are turning it the next day into commercial property. You guys are buying commercial property and you're wanting to pay farm ground prices. And one thing last before I leave is every one of you, I wish I would have brought copies so that I could hand them out to all you guys of the Constitution. The Constitution, we have land rights, and to go on our property without our permission is a violation of the Fourth Amendment, and then they will be trespassed off my property.
All right, go ahead. Next in line.
Kevin McFarland. Has the KCC ever heard reported of any cases of landowner or easement abuse by Evergy?
I don't know. I mean, I've been at the KCC for 23 years. I'm not sure that I can remember every case that I've been involved in over that period of time. But honestly, I can say that I don't think that we've ever ruled that there was landowner abuse in an eminent domain case or easement acquisition case. I'm also not sure that that would even come before the KCC. I mean, we don't oversee that eminent
I
domain
understand. I was
process.
just
I
asking
think
if
it's a
you've ever
district
been
court case.
aware or heard of that happening
I haven't.
since the board is considering this line. Have they ever been made aware of any landowner or easement abuse?
I would say, I don't know. I don't know if the commissioners have, but I've never heard of that personally.
My second question is directed toward Evergy, and I asked them last night. The yellow line goes in between the hospital and the runway for the airport. It also goes right over the top of a cemetery, which you said was weighted fairly highly. So how many points did the cemetery get? How many points did the hospital get? It's less than 1,000 feet from the hospital.
So we are outside of the cemetery, to be clear.
Yep.
Correct?
I mean,
We're directly-
your yellow line's within like 30 feet of it.
So we will acquire no easement from the cemetery.
So you'll go closer to the airport.
Outside. The airport, we looked at it earlier. The southern edge of the airport runway is roughly 2 miles away. Not airport property, but airport runway. And, down the road, once we get further along in design, we'll file an application with Federal Aviation Administration. They review each and every pole location and the top elevation of that pole, and they have to approve those sites.
So the FAA has not approved that route yet.
No, we have to get into our design phase before that.
Okay.
But as a rule of thumb, we're typically when we try to identify constraints, being 2 miles away is adequate.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, and stand in the room for the last question.
Okay, there's a few. It looks like I can't circle around this time, so I'll just say a few of them together. What modeling has been conducted regarding corona noise during wet or humid conditions, and how will this noise complaints be addressed post-construction? The corona noise is like the humming you hear from the lines and stuff like that, for anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, we typically don't study corona noise inside the easement corridor unless the landowner expresses concern, and I don't have any of that data handy.
Would that data be provided to landowners? Because like some people have said, it's really close to their house enough of if they would have that kind of issue.
If the data is available, we can follow up. Yeah.
And then what route-specific wildlife and aviation studies have been conducted for this corridor? And will bird diverters or line markers be installed to reduce collision risk?
Let's see. So wildlife studies. So yeah, we typically utilize bird diverters at river crossings and avian passageways. And then as far as our general wildlife and environmental studies, let's see, Jessica had the right phrase for it last night. What is it? Environmental due diligence. we've performed that. Yeah.
Okay, and that kind of goes with the corona noise. Could that affect any of the migratory birds, maybe get them off path? And that being studied to make sure that won't affect their flight patterns?
I've never heard of that happening before. Andy, do you have any additional input? Yeah.
We do have to apply to both state and federal wildlife agencies, and they do review that application. And yeah, we have to, if they tell us it's gonna affect, a bird pattern, we would have to address that until they were satisfactory to tell us, and they're the ones that'll typically go, tell us exactly where the minimum requirement for the markers, on that too, and which are the flight paths that we need to be aware of. But we rely on their review and their expertise once we submit the design to them. And then before we can get our final permit to build, they've got to give us their feedback.
Okay, and then hearing a lot of displeased people with this on the access to their land and the easements, what is the next steps to constitute good faith negotiation in this project? And how many parcels do you guys anticipate will be acquired using eminent domain then?
Can't say that I anticipate a specific number. Our goal is always 0. As a company, we're typically low single-digit percentages on any type of project for eminent domain versus being able to come to an agreement and payment up front. So, I would hope this project's very similar, and we're in the single digits when we talk about percentages that go to eminent domain. So
A way to combat using the eminent domain. Does that mean you guys might provide independent appraisals to show the expenses that might affect the landowners if they were ever to purchase and the value of their land, if they'll see a decrease in their property value?
as far as property value, that's set by the county, not by us.
So have you guys done studies to make sure it won't affect anybody catastrophe, like really bad?
That is the part of, when you do easement payments, that is what the intent of the easement is. If there is an effect, that the easement accounts for that cost reduction in the value of their property. So they get that up front when they do sell their property, then hopefully they're at the same position they would be. So that is our goal up front, and what we use as the standard when we're looking at easement negotiation.
Okay. And at what point are the landowners allowed meaningful input on the final structure placement before the kind of eminent domain would happen? Do they have a say on like what kind, do you guys have a ceiling on how much you'd offer them? And then you can't go over that eminent domain would take effect? Or how does that work? Because a lot of people, even with an easement, they still want access to that land because it might go right through their land and they need that access to reach, further cattle and farm it and everything. How much kind of teamwork or goes into that?
Yeah, once we purchase an easement from a property owner, they still have full access to that property. They're still the fee owner of that property. They have open access to cross under the line back and forth as they feel the need to on their day-to-day operations. What the easement will limit is being able to put permanent structures or permanent storage yards that store, higher pieces of equipment and stuff directly underneath that line. But you still have full access to cross through that easement at your pleasure any day, anytime.
But it will halt then any kind of oil production line that might just cross over the easement to get to the back of their property then.
Sorry, I didn't hear the full.
So, but then in turn, if it can't be a permanent structure of any sort or a permanent change to it, it would alter if they wanted to have any kind of further oil production from the front of their property to the back, say it splits it in half. They wouldn't be able to insert any kind of structure for that line to go across the easement then.
Yeah, you can still do underground. You can still do stuff close to the ground. What we're going to have is height restrictions, where you can't put stuff that's 20 foot tall crossing underneath that line. But if you want to bury pipeline, something on the ground, that's still acceptable. And the easement will lay that out, that contract language. And that's something I encourage everyone in here to review if we end up coming to you to discuss easements. So.
Yeah.
Just a little time check. We're at 7 o'clock now. I want to get to a break here pretty soon. And I see we've got a line has developed again. So just, we can keep going. I want everybody to get their questions answered, but just want to make sure, we're getting through them.
Basically, we're getting to, does that need any kind of permission? And with the 20 feet height restriction as farm equipment's developing, how does that change the farming underneath it with a combine as tractors keep getting bigger? What kind of restrictions are we seeing in the future?
Yeah, and right now to be road legal, and I know farm equipment doesn't have to be road legal, is 14 foot. Obviously, everything 14 foot is cleared to go under our lines. If there's larger equipment, I think Kale, you can talk from the design. I think it's 20 some that we design full clearance.
Yeah, I spent about 5 years designing transmission lines. The minimum ground clearance for this line will be 35 feet above ground. Hottest day of the year, maximum sag on the conductor, 35 feet. We typically design our line clearances to account for, I think about 20 and a half feet for the tallest combine that we might get. And then we also design for terraces and such like that. So if you're working through a hilly area inside of our easement, then it would account for that additional elevation as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Next in the room.
So question, do you not know how much a land value or property value decreases with the interjection of these high-powered, high-voltage lines?
Yeah, can I look at your property and answer that question? No, what I can say we do look at various properties. We have looked at properties. It can vary. It's a personal opinion. We also have cases where people like the green space behind their property because it guarantees that. So we've seen it go the other direction. So that is a very specific question that requires a lot of facts.
So online, it says that 40 to 50% of the value is lost in the eyes of others, potential buyers, when those high lines are, and they go 3 miles out. Now it's 40 to 50% right there where the line is, but that affects property 3 miles out because these things are so butt ugly. Let me ask you this. Do you know how many miles of lines, high voltage lines, are in Kansas already?
About 7,000.
I was going to say, I can't say entire state, but the eastern half of Kansas that is Evergy territory, we've got between 6,000 and 7,000 miles of transmission line.
7,400 miles plus. So with the lessening of property values, and somebody's got I've got a large property, am I going to be compensated for the loss of property value for the entire property? Probably not.
Yeah, the payment is for the strip easement, but that is to account for loss of use and loss of value on the entire.
Okay.
Now, that's where I say that with hesitation, because if you own 7,000 continuous acres, can we say it affects 7,000 acres? No, but reasonable interpretation of the effect of it. So.
Would someone from the KCC, would you like to tell me what the mission is for the KCC? I have it written down if you don't know.
Yeah. Mr. Grady, have you committed the KCC's mission statement to memory?
No, I'm ashamed to say I haven't. I know that the mission of the KCC is to serve the people of Kansas. And I mean,
By
ultimately,
regulating the state's energy infrastructure. Yes. Well, you knew part of it, so you get a half a brownie point on that. I think that's all I have now. I'll save the rest for the public comment since we are getting a long line, but it really is sad that you didn't know that mission by heart, but it is to serve the people. By a show of hands, is anybody here against this project? Raise your hand. Thank you.
All right, next in line.
I'm from Buda Springs, the city, the town part. And the line that's going for over about 1.5 miles is going right over the water line that feeds our town. And I just want to be sure, how deep do these go? And nobody, as far, I'm the treasurer, I don't think anybody's really contacted Buda city office as to where that line is. And I just wanted to be sure how deep that is and how it'll be. I know it won't go all the way, but it'll land on one end or the other.
Yeah. So the next step, if we are to get approval and receive our siding permit, we'll get out there and do additional survey work. We'll pothole your line, figure out where it's at, make sure that we're avoiding it. And, you know, as far as the depth of our piers or our poles, you know, anywhere between usually 15 and 20 feet if it's a straight line structure, but it shouldn't have any impact on your water line.
Oh, that's, that's in the ballpark.
All right, go ahead.
Keith Tolles, Arc City, for the KCC. Have you guys ever denied a permit for a project this size?
So we've certainly made modifications to the route of a permit. There is a case back in, I believe, the late 70s in which the KCC determined that it was a Kansas City Power and Light transmission line. And what was determined was that it was not necessary. And we ordered that entity to basically lease an existing transmission line that had additional capacity. Though it has happened. But to be honest, we haven't cited a lot of major transmission lines like this in the last 10 years. There's only been a couple. I mean, like you can count them on one hand.
For Evergy, I dealt with you guys in the last 5 years, and they went across the end of an 80 of mine, and they wanted an easement on the whole field. And I got a lawyer, and the day before court, they decided that they didn't need that extra. Are you guys going to pursue easements on whole properties again, like you did then?
We don't require easements on whole properties. It's
Well, you did in my case.
It's a strip easement, defined clearly by a surveying exhibit. We have rights of ingress and egress for construction and maintenance purposes. And when we work on those ingress and egress routes, we work with the landowner, identify the least impactful route, and we build a line. We're out, and then if for some reason we get a tornado and the line goes down, then we got to get back out there. Other than that, you don't hear from us.
Well, this line was along the road, but they wanted the whole half mile.
I think maybe we have representatives from a real estate group. I think we'd probably be best off to speak specifically to your case, just to make sure.
Well, it was everybody. I was the only one that fought it and kept them from doing it.
Well, it wasn't an easement for the entire property.
Yes, it was. I can show you the paperwork.
Then I think ingress and egress more than likely, but that doesn't give us rights to build a transmission line across your entire property.
Well, they sure tried it.
All right, next, go ahead. Yeah, it looks like I'm the only thing between you guys and getting off the hot seat right there. So, but not so fast. This wasn't part of my questions, but I need to make a comment. My friend Mary here and my neighbor asked a question about if you knew the Kansas Corporation Commission mission statement. Thank you. And you, sir, you had a good laugh about that when you asked your colleague there. You need to brush up on your respect. That was very disrespectful to Mary. I think you owe her an apology. So you can handle. I trust that you, good man that you are, you'll handle that on your own time. Okay, Kansas Corporation Commission. So the need and the path, I guess, are my two concerns. Are you clear yet, the Corporation Commission and the young lady here, I can't remember your name, but you'll have two different teams kind of battling this out in a court sense within your office? You're going to have pros and cons and to make a decision on whether or not you're going to pass this or allow this. Is that right?
Is the question whether we've made our determination about the necessity of the line?
No, the question would be, I want to make sure I'm addressing it to the right folks first. So if your office is going to make this decision, whether or not to grant this ability to Evergy, you really need to understand the need. Do these folks out here need this? They're going to be impacted. I see all their faces. I've heard them. They're going to be impacted, right? We can agree on that. But for what need? For them now or in the future? So The way I understood it in my conversations with the nice gentleman that I talked to from Evergy earlier tonight, thank you, sir. But it sounded like this need generated from an issue that happened in Texas a few years ago. During the winter, they had a freeze that they weren't expecting down there. Not traditionally likely for Texas. And this is a type of transmission line that's going to help possibly prevent that in the future.
Yes.
Thank you for that. So there's your need.
Not
It's not yours at this point in
No,
time.
I didn't mean
It's somebody else's at this point in time.
It's not Texas. I'm sorry. I didn't.
So that's what that's what your the applicant, that's what your applicant's team told me. So maybe we need to talk to our applicant. However, so if the need is not for us at the current time, I don't know that we have had any shortages now that this transmission line fixes. Maybe it will in the future, but it seems like a very low likelihood that these folks in this area need this increase in power. It's going to go somewhere else. Okay. The path. The question is on the path. So we don't need it, but we're going to get it anyway. What's the least intrusive path? I think I've heard that mentioned several times. Least intrusive path. Great. The least intrusive path seems to be one of the easements that we've already given up in the state of Kansas that have power lines going through it, right? And I think if you look at that map, there seem to have been several transmission lines, one south of Wichita that runs diagonal south and east towards southeast Kansas. Upgrade it, use it. The easement's there. It doesn't affect anybody in this room if you do that. If they need the power, it can come from using that transmission line most of the way down. You're going to have to build a little bit of a new line. Hey, I know it'll affect your guys' ability to have a big project and get revenue from that project, but the people of Kansas are the ones that benefit the most by not having new power lines over their property. Use the easement you've already got. You've got a great one running across south of Wichita and then heading southeast. If you can't do that, maybe you can't, but my question for Kansas Commission is, do you know whether or not that line can be used instead of creating a new line? Have you done that study yet to understand if you can use existing transmission lines and hardly build any new lines over people's property?
So we haven't done a full double circuit analysis. We have been involved in a double circuiting analysis that was conducted on the Wolf Creek to Blackberry line. It is a solution that sounds like a great win-win solution. And ultimately, when you end up looking at that, it ends up being pretty difficult. You know, if one of those transmission lines is a critical piece of facility that can't just be out, you know, you can't take it out in order to construct and upgrade and put the new transmission facility on it. What ends up happening is you have to purchase another easement right next to the existing transmission line and build the new higher upgraded line and then potentially get rid of the other easement. But
yeah,
it has been studied. Evergy could probably answer what their particular viewpoint on
sounds
double
like a good
circuiting is.
option, really.
But it's not a great, it's not a perfect solution in every instance.
I don't think there is a perfect solution here.
I agree.
Just to be honest with you. I mean, I think we could all agree to that, but the least impactful to more residents of Kansas sounds like a win, right? Last question. KCC's off the hot seat. Evergy. I was surprised to learn tonight that the only payments that would be made are to people's property in which you're going to set poles. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What?
Unless the easement extends.
Well, the easement extension.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
give you that. 175 feet squat.
Where
All
the
right?
strip easement.
I'll give you that.
lies.
What about all the folks that live along there, may have just built new houses that sit out there and see nothing every night? What about those folks that are going to have to sit out there and see those power lines, possibly hear the humming that, hey, we're on the same website, that I heard about too? What about those folks? What about their way of life? What's that worth to you? It sounds like nothing right now. Well, and you're also not affected by it personally. But what about their way of life? What about if an easement's right across their property line? What about the value of their property?
Yeah.
So
can't speak-
studies show that the value of that property decreases significantly. So are you guys willing to look at paying, like Mary said, a settlement to folks within a certain swath of area, and not just where the poles sit?
Our strategy for easement acquisition today and for the last 100 years is to pay for the easements that we acquire. And we haven't, up to this point in time, entertained paying anyone who doesn't have an easement, or we didn't pay for an easement to acquire. The unsightliness of the line and what we would pay for that. I can tell you, although I'm sensitive to the idea that you don't want to look at the transmission line and you didn't get a payment for it. If we start paying folks for unsightliness of a line, even though it's not on your property, I don't think there's any end to that. I don't know how you would ever put any guardrails on that. And then I'm trying to think of what the impacts to the cost of electricity in the future might be if we altered our approach to easement acquisition. So I'm not unempathetic to it. I have a small farm too, and the thought of us building a line on it, I wouldn't like that, right?
Yeah. I think the answer, I appreciate that honesty. I appreciate that honesty. The reality is it impacts the value of your property. That's the answer. It does impact it. And whether or not the for-profit company wants to pay for it, KCC, that's the reason why I'd say no. If they can't take care of these people, that where this line is going, and try to make it right with them, we don't need it. So.
All right, thank you. Got a couple more.
I'm back. No, I promise. I'm civil. I did was just thinking back. I wanted to get this answer before I left today. You were talking about this line is to help kind of like lessen the burden of the thermal effects and everything with weather. Why is this chunk of money not going into maybe improving already existing substations and maybe expanding them to handle loads better versus a whole new line? Because I know it's with a new substation and stuff, and why not already improve what we have to handle the area?
It's a good question. So the limitations of the system are not at the substation. So there's no needed capacity needs at Buffalo Flats and or at Delaware. The capacity needs are on the 345 system and the greater interconnection of the grid. The way that I would frame it up, and I'll steal a little bit from what Justin said last night, is the grid under the right conditions, and we've seen it at least twice in the last 4 years, get to a point where the grid becomes very fragile. And I think I said it got to the point in 2021 where we had to interrupt our customers to make sure that we didn't have a runaway collapse of the grid. The Southwest Power Pool, in their analysis, determined that this line is one of the solutions to make sure that we don't have that in the future. And it's hard to get your head around, and I know this impacts y'all more than it impacts us, certainly. There's no question about that. But we're trying to avoid a potential collapse of the transmission system, which we don't know where it ends once it starts. So if you go back to, the Northeast blackouts in the early 2000s, which really set off a lot of what we've been doing for the last 20 years in the transmission sector, it's to make sure that we don't have one of those again, because you don't know all of the economic, just loss from that, right? So if you think about not having the power on in several states at a time for up to a week, I mean, I'm trying to get my head around what does that even mean? And that's kind of what we're up against. I think absent that fear that we've got as a transmission owner and a transmission operator and being part of the Southwest Power Pool, that for me is my driver. Like I'm trying to avoid that. I can tell you if we have a collapse of the transmission system and we don't have the power on in Kansas or Missouri for a couple of weeks, I mean, I'm pretty sure me and the commission are going to be talking, quite frankly, a lot more than probably either one of us would want to. But that's kind of why we're here. That's why we feel like we need the line. But it's not an increase in capacity at the substations. The substations are kind of the heartbeat of the transmission. And you can think of the lines as the arteries. They're going to deliver the energy. And the more lines that we have, the less risk that we have in having a collapse of the grid.
And there's no way to just improve the pre-existing lines then to maybe reroute and fix like certain sections at a time that would fix that, like with the heart, you put in a stent to keep the flow going and increase the flow. So upgraded lines wouldn't be able to do that utilizing this money?
Yeah. So could we rebuild transmission lines across Kansas and, potentially, increase the capacity of those lines? I think we could do that, right? Here's what ends up happening. We end up having to most often rebuild lines that for us are, quite frankly, maybe in the best health. The capacity increases that we get in the line are helpful, but they're not in the right location. And that's why this line is needed, because it takes the power flow from a place on the grid that's underloaded at Buffalo Flats and underloaded at Delaware and moves the load from where it's overloaded into those stations, which I can't do no matter, quite frankly, how many lines I start rebuilding across Kansas, although I'll make those lines, I'll increase the capacity of them, no doubt. But I don't think to the level that we'd get to avoid building this line.
So basically, in a way, that's why a lot of people maybe feel we're getting punished for our less use of electricity and how we utilize maybe our propane usage and our wood stoves and everything, because we're in an area that's not super urbanized to overload the infrastructure.
Yeah, I can't speak to the feeling of punishment or anything like that. One of my comments at the very beginning of the hearing tonight was that we're part of a 14-state network. And that network and being part of that pool of power brings to us enormous benefit in terms of cost of energy and what we pay for power. Building a line that we may feel doesn't benefit us directly here in Kansas is part of being in that pool. So I would say overall, even though we're likely to build a line that, nobody in the room probably wants, at the end of the day, it's going to make the grid a lot more reliable. And I think at the end of the day, it's also going to be a cost benefit to the folks. I think we're going to see more economic generation be consumed by our customers than we otherwise would, to the extent that it is beyond the cost of the line. I can't answer that. But young lady, I hear you. I understand.
And then a last one that came up was a lot of this stuff's kind of going on during our fire season. With these transmission lines going up, are they wood or are they metal? And if they're metal and they have to do with welding or anything, what kind of fire risk are we looking at that it just gets out of hand here with our ravines if we can't get on top of them.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand the question that you've got. Are you asking, is the line that we're going to build be metal or wood?
Because like metal would include, they're big enough, they'll need welded together and there will be a little bit more of a spark kind of structure.
Yeah, these would be steel poles. Fabrication is performed at the factory.
Okay.
It's all mechanical nuts and bolts, installation, slip joints, flanges in the field. So we don't anticipate any welding out in the field.
Okay, so there's no fire risk or anything during development.
We may have a little bit of spot welding for maybe a factory repair or something like that, but nothing significant.
Okay, and if anything goes out of hand, is the landowner's the first, like a contact quick enough to know the damage or the potential of harm to their livestock or their home or anything? I know 911, of course, is first,
Yeah.
but on getting a fire under control, the landowner, are they contacted quickly or what
Yes.
kind of
Yep.
procedures there?
Fire department and landowner, yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
All right, we've got two more people in line and then we're going to go to a quick break. So go ahead.
My name is Orva. I'm from Maple City, Kansas. And I wonder why we have not seen a contract. They won't evidently give you a contract unless they go to settle with you. I'd kind of like to see one ahead of time.
Yeah, we could provide our standard easement agreement template. Yeah. And
I'm sorry, what?
we could provide you our standard easement agreement to take a look at. I mean, obviously, as we negotiate and finalize, details are added to that, but we do have a standard template that we work off of with every landowner. We'd be happy to provide that to you.
Okay. Since our property is decreasing in value, are taxes going to decrease in value too for the county?
Say taxes? Property taxes.
The county assesses.
Yeah, it's a county assessment question. I'm afraid I can't answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name's Michael Andrew from Wichita. This line's going to cover go across several properties that I manage for people. And my question was about the easements as well. The aspects of the easement have multiple issues with them. First, the easement will be a right-of-way, 175-foot right-of-way, correct? Is that correct?
175-foot maximum easement, not a right-of-way. Roads have right-of-ways, we have easement.
175-foot
Easement.
right-of-way that you have to pay for, correct?
Correct.
Then the ingress egress to that right-of-way, how much of those tracks is Evergy gonna want to acquire? And they have to pay for that as well, correct?
When we develop an easement agreement, ingress and egress is included in that. And we work that out with the landowner to develop the least impactful route to get to and from our transmission easement.
So is the answer you are required to pay for ingress egress?
No, it's included in the easement compensation.
So there's a figure in there for ingress egress? Because there hasn't been in the past with Evergy.
Part of the easement compensation.
And then another aspect is control of use. Normally Evergy's easements have control of use for a certain distance outside of the right-of-way. There's specific aspects of these easements. One's the right-of-way, and then ingress egress easement on the remainder of the property, and then control of use is usually on most Evergy easements outside of the right-of-way. You have to pay for that as well, don't you?
We don't limit your use outside of our easement.
You have no control of use in
Not
your
outside of our easement corridor.
outside of your right-of-way is my question.
Right of way, yeah.
Because I have them with me that have that control of use outside of the right-of-way. You have to pay for that, correct? If we go eminent domain, you have to pay for that.
We don't have control of use outside of the right of way.
Our current easement agreement.
That it would be
Easement agreement does not have.
it would
control
be
of use.
very beneficial because in the past, and I know several people in the land department have been terminated because this kind of stuff went on. And that's why it'd be really nice to see a sample easement. Because I've heard maybe that might not be included anymore.
Yeah, it's not in our current easement agreement. I don't, and the phone number, we can get that back up there. That phone number that was listed for the project actually goes, our real estate team is the one that receives those calls, and they're the ones, they can provide a copy of our current standard template. Yeah, I can't speak for what's happened over the last 100 years.
Exactly. Yes.
on that, and you may have an old one that had something like that. I can't.
And then does the easement include right to pledge or mortgage your real estate interests?
No.
No. Does it include right to transfer? Absolutely, probably.
Yes,
Yeah.
if the company would sell, yes, it would be in there for that. to be
Okay,
able to
thank you very
transfer.
much.
All right, thank you. We are at 7:30. We're gonna take just a 5-minute break so everybody can use the restroom, get a drink, and at 7:35, we'll come back and we'll start with comments. So we're in recess. Well, it's no, it's not. Well, it's definitely. Multiple different places. I've seen multiple different.
Not at all. Okay.
Okay, I've got 7:35, so if folks will start finding your seats, we will begin the public comment portion of the program. Are you ready? All right, we will now begin the official public comment session. If everybody will find your seats, we'll get started. All right, I do want to emphasize that the commissioners take these public comments very seriously. They are considered in the docket. They are part of the official record, and they're an important part of our evaluation process as we examine the application in this case. Consequently, we look forward to hearing all the comments tonight and getting them on the record. We cannot engage in dialogue with you during the public comment session. However, we may ask questions for clarification. So I have a list of people who've indicated they'd like to offer comments, and I will call on those folks in the order that they appear on my list. If you are participating on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature, and I will just alternate between the live audience and Zoom as long as we've got hands on both. So, and if you are on Zoom, just unmute yourself after I call your name. Once you're called on, I will ask, just like we did with the Q&A session, begin by stating your name and then please also the city or county that you reside in, as these comments are being recorded and they will become part of the official commission record. Also, for everyone in the audience and on Zoom, please refrain from inappropriate language, disruptive behavior, as that would result us in having to mute the microphones. So we will begin here in the room, and the first name I have is John Timmerman.
Yeah, I'm John Timmerman. I'm on the corner of 90th and Dalton. Well, you would know it as Oliver in Sumner County. Maybe I should have been in the question section, but they told me to go in the comment. This line here is going to be crossing right across the middle of my property. I am already under a wind contract on that property, which this line for the height and the position that it's in will negate that windmill project, causes me to lose tens of thousands of dollars right now, possibly a cumulative if I don't get the windmill because of this project. I could lose $250,000. And I don't know, so I asked the lady from Evergy, you know, if we opted out, if I, you know, because I'm going to lose a lot more money, even at the point that I am now, you know, because it will negate my windmill project. if I opt out, she says, well, just go ahead and we'll take an eminent domain to go through if it's approved. So my main concern is that, I know the property southeast of me is also in the same windmill project. This goes across, are they going to negate that, or do they even take that into consideration already, that they're crossing a windmill project? So, yeah, I think I should have been so I guess now I don't know where to go because I should have been in the question, but they told me to go into the comments section.
Let me ask the Evergy folks, are you going to stick around afterward? Okay, I'm getting nodding heads, so you'll have an opportunity to go chat with them afterward.
Okay, all right. They'll come to me, or I don't know who they are. Okay.
They said just come up to the front corner.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, I don't have any hands online actually, so we will stick here in the room. And the next name I have looks like Tom Norris.
Yes, I'm Tom Norris. I live in Wellington, south of Wellington, Kansas, in Sumner County. I own and manage a farm, and Evergy is proposing a transmission line that will run diagonally the long way across a half section of land. This route makes it very difficult to farm this land. Why can't it run next to existing roads, or at least next to the property lines? Our farm equipment is getting large and expensive. We have 120-foot sprayers, 50-foot planting equipment, 40-foot combines, and they're getting bigger. If one of the towers is close to a road, or we can't get our equipment around it. And there will also be the constant battle of weeds growing around the towers. Our equipment is GPS controlled and auto steer. We plant north-south, east-west. Because this power line does not run parallel to property lines, we will have to manually drive around each tower in the field. And this will make farming a lot more dangerous and time-consuming. And there will also be an additional cost of seed, fuel, fertilizer, and spray because having to go around these towers. Last year, we planted 200 acres of cotton on that field. And because of weather, we could not spray it with a ground rig, and so had to have an airplane come in and spray it. Think of how difficult it would be for an airplane to spray that ground because of the diagonal line going across. For the most recent year available, the USDA's 24 report showed that the total land total land and farms decreased 2.1 million acres from 23 to 24. And that's pretty consistent with the long range trend of 2 to 3 million acres disappearing annually. There are routes that would go over more pasture and destroy less of good Sumner County farmland. Farming is more dangerous than most people realize. The data points a very clear and sobering picture. Agriculture is consistently one of the most hazardous industries in the United States, with a fatality rate dramatically higher than the national average. Don't make farming difficult and dangerous than it already is. Having to dodge towers in the middle of a field is not safe for the farmer, his equipment, or your towers. In conclusion, please run the power lines next to existing roads or property lines. You could make farming safer, quicker, and less expensive. We don't want to dodge towers in the middle of the field. We have farmed with REA poles at the edge of our fields for years, and we get along fine with them. And you can do the same thing with your Evergy line. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Groom.
Thank you once again. I'm commissioner in Cowley County here, been for almost 20 years, 18 years now. And if you look up the definition of ethical and eminent domain, you look them both up. I truly feel in my 18 years of serving in this commission, Cowley County, that this grab for this property through this power line going through here is exactly that, an unethical grab of eminent domain. You guys, I agree with the previous gentleman on the going down the high line or high lines down the roads that are already established, state roads. You know, the county roads and the old transmission lines go along the edge of the property lines, like the gentleman said, goes around the blacktops. I feel that they should stay along property edge lines. It's going to cost more money. This company is making so many billions of dollars. There's hundreds of millions of dollars of product going through these lines every day. They can pay more to put these things in a less that's not going to impact so many homeowners and landowners. I just feel that these property lines going through these properties that are generational, guys, that have been around in the families from the 1800s. Some of it lands homesteaded in the old days. You know, it's wrong, guys, to go through here when these people do not want it. Find another route. I just believe that, you know, no matter what you pay these people, it's not enough for the impact it's going to make. You do any research on the health of people living underneath these lines, it's not good. I don't care what you look up. Let alone, I realize after talking to some individuals that it's a state statute that these people don't pay taxes on any of these lines for 10 years. Everyone here needs to contact their representatives and their senators and get that thing taken care of. So these people making billions and billions of dollars on these transmission lines can at least help the county by decreasing their taxes by paying their share of all this money. I just believe it's completely unfair and the most unethical grab of eminent domain. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that comment. Next comment will be Jason Brewer.
I was at the public information section back in July 31st at Baden Square. And at that session, there were 3 alternative lines proposed across Cowley County. And to be totally transparent, I really didn't think there was any way in the world that the southern route would be chosen. It seemed to me that in Cowley County, at least, that southern route impacted the most residences by far than the other 2. I imagine because of the route across Sumner County, it was a foregone conclusion that the southern route would be chosen all along. It is the proximity to residences that is, to me, the most troubling. Where the transmission line crosses my property, at least where I hope it crosses, there'll be minimal impact to the terracing. There's been a lot of terracing done on that. But it's likely going to run on the southern boundary of my property would be my guess. And the property that's impacted for me is at 232nd Road and 85th, also known as Greens Farm Road. There are residences within 150 feet of my southern boundary of that property. And some of those residences have been established in the last decade or so. And since the easement that goes across my property will not run on their property, they will receive no compensation for having those power lines there. The jury is still out about the health effects of living so close in proximity to those power lines. I know that there's the Journal of Epidemiology of March 18, 2005. They studied hematological malignancies in Japan. And they studied districts in Japan that were within 300 meters. For us here, that'd be 984 feet within a high voltage power line, and found a 2-fold increase in malignancies. In the British Journal of Cancer, a 2016 study, there was an increase in childhood leukemia with those who were within close proximity to a high voltage power line, consistent with there was a small increased risk they showed. In the British Medical Journal of 2005, there was an elevated risk of leukemia among children living in homes as far as 600 meters from a high voltage power line. And that study involved 30,000 matched case controlled pairs of children. So they had a study of those who lived close by and those that didn't. They matched those pairs. These studies do not claim to prove a link by any conclusive scientific method to say for sure, conclusively, these high voltage power lines causes cancer or leukemia. But they don't rule it out, and the results are statistically significant. There are other causes these studies talk about for what might cause this in the alternative to these high voltage power lines. Those causes include things such as microwaves or cell phone use. The difference, however, in those things is the average person will use their cell phone approximately 5 to 7 hours per day. And of the 5 to 7 hours per day, that's not phone up to your ear time. It's total use time. An average person will use a microwave between 15 to 30 minutes a day. A high voltage power line running near a residence will be running 24 hours a day. So I think this is not really a serious comparison when they're comparing other potential causes of these health effects. But because my neighbors who live right there do not have transmission lines crossing their land, they get nothing. As for landowners, the easement creates two estates, a dominant estate and a subservient estate. The dominant estate is a person that has the actual easement, the express easement, in this case, Evergy. The subservient estate is a landowner. The landowner is free to use his land as long as it does not interfere with the dominant estate of Evergy. Mr. Allum from Vow Energy commented earlier about oil and gas leases. To the degree my land is encumbered by an easement by Evergy, Evergy has a prerogative to decline leasing my minerals and eliminating that. Because of the setback provisions, the actual economic impact upon my land is to remove potentially 20, 30 plus acres that could have been leased for oil and gas production. Whether I want to build, farm, lease, my use will always be subservient to that of Evergy's easement. I will never be able to have a crop duster in a wet year, unlikely to be able to have a spray by a drone, and for all practical purposes, that constitutes a taking. At least, however, I might receive compensation in 2026 dollars, a one-time payment, but not an ongoing payment. My neighbors who live there have to look at it, receive nothing. The thing that I think is really frustrating for folks here is they do not feel like they really truly have any impact. And it's a typical Topeka, Wichita, Kansas City type thing here in little old Cowley County, USA. We do not have representation. Now, we actually do have a person on the KCC, but we need representation because the benefits that are going to be utilized by people will be benefits to Branson, to Wichita, to other places. For all practical purpose, will receive no financial benefit from these lines and these takings. Once they happen, once there's an easement, and whether you call the ingress and egress a blanket ingress and egress or just an ingress and egress, those are forever. That is a forever taking, forever use that will not be able to go back to the way it once was. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comment. Or the Orva Rothjeb. I hope I got that right.
I'm Orva Rothgeb. Section 8 in your map is where our place is. The address is 21339 US 166, Maple City, Kansas 67102. You take a very small part of our property, a corner.
But that corner is where we have everything that we make a living with. It's where our cattle pens are. It's where our driveway is. And the line goes across the driveway. The line goes across our personal private airstrip. And there's no place else that we can put an airstrip. That's the only place that doesn't have a lot of rocks, if you're familiar with it. I have a list here, but I won't read them. I'll turn them in of the things that's going to areas that will be destroyed or endangered by your line. And we were planning on building a new home there, and we had everything ready to go before we learned about your line. So we're holding off, but it's too close to your line. We do have two families living on the place. There is houses that they live in that evidently wasn't noticed. There is a pond there that has a very large marshy area that's going practically right over where you're going. This is a place that's been in our family since 1881. It's straight down the bloodline, and we really like it. And, you know, no amount of money is going to satisfy us for that corner because it's been in our family forever. And I really don't think this line is a public benefit of any way. It's not going to benefit any town except for Wichita and down in the corner of Oklahoma. And like somebody else said, it would probably be great for you just to get with another line, or at least go down the same area. Those people would probably appreciate the money again. I will leave, if I can, I will leave the document with you tonight. Is that all right?
Yes, please leave it with our public affairs staff at the table outside.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the call. Keith Tolles?
Keith Tolles, Ark City, Kansas. The cost of this project is approximately 500 million. We can easily get that over $1 billion if everyone gets legal counsel and fights condemnation. We can string this thing out for years. Evergy's claim of a long history of working with landowners is a fantasy. I've experienced working with Evergy. They bully, they obfuscate, and threaten. They try and get an easement on an entire field and fight to get it. Only way I was able to keep them from getting it was to hire a lawyer and be willing to go to court. They relented the day before the hearing. My lawyer told me Evergy's land agent was the nastiest one he'd ever dealt with. His words. Evergy's mitigation for agriculture land is also a joke. They left 3-inch rock in my field and replaced native grass full of seed with Johnson grass in it. I'm still fighting that to this day. They have no regard for conservation practices, tried to put a pole in the top of a terrace. When confronted, they could only move it 10 feet. This line does not benefit Cowley County. It is a pass-through. All it does is ruin the land it passes through and causes damage to the people, lives, and property. It is also an eyesore, reduces property values, even to property not directly under this monstrosity. Thank you.
Thank you. Blake Biaggi?
Yes, I'm Blake Biaggi. I'm also the grandson of Aura Rothgibb. She just spoke, and our property is being impacted by it. I was given the opportunity to build a home on our family ranch, which I was very excited, me and my wife. And we plan to have children there. And those dreams kind of came to a halt after surveying a property to build a home. And then we get letters in the mail stating we're going to have a transmission line run right next to where we've already surveyed for the home and had started production on the house. And so it really impacts that. It's not something, we're not going to be able to build a home like that. I'm not going to have children exposed to that. And like we heard earlier, there's stuff about leukemia, different things that can affect children. That's not something I want next to a house. So we need to see what we can do to change that. I'm in Cowley County, right next to the Cowley County Lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin McFarland.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Kevin McFarland. I live at 13816 234th Road. My house is the Magnolia Ranch. It's a historical house that is on the Historical Society. It was built in 1883. This transmission line goes about 400 to 500 meters south of my house. It cuts across a large swath of unencumbered land that has no roads, no power lines, nothing through it. It's wide open farm fields, family farm. It cuts through multiple century farms that have been in families for generations just to the west of me. It cuts through an area that we also find many culturally significant artifacts, dinosaur bones, Indian artifacts. It's on the north end of the Etzanoa map. It just hasn't really been archaeologically dug yet, but a lot of our stuff has been turned into the Etzanoa people as well. To the west of my house along the river, I've counted as many as 4 pairs of bald eagles. At least 2 to 3 pairs come back every year. Within probably 100 yards of where this line is supposed to go through. It is a culturally significant area through not just my place, but the whole Pleasant Valley area down through there is a historically and culturally significant area for Cowley County. My other concern is again with the proximity to the hospital, being within 900 feet of a helicopter landing pad, within 1,000 feet of our hospital. So all of our MRI machines, anybody that has a pacemaker that goes into that hospital, our community as a whole is not going to benefit by having that right there. I'm also concerned with the proximity to the airport. I know they say it's far enough south, but we land jets at that airport and they can't make steep approaches. And it's smack dab in the middle, in between the airport closest to the hospital. And then in between the airport and the hospital, it goes right along the north boundary of the cemetery where my father's buried. So when I go to visit my father on Memorial Day or any other day, and I sit there with my family within 100 foot of that power line, what is that going to do to my family? What is that going to do to the residents that go visit their loved ones in that cemetery, having that thing that close to where we park, eat, spend time as a family at the cemetery? I think as a whole, the line is it's a land grab, in my opinion. I see this as a way for Evergy to build their bottom line, build their balance sheet. I don't really see how it benefits Cowley County, Chautauqua County, and the fact that it's avoiding Osage County because Evergy does not want to battle the tribe. And we're using up Kansas land because we don't want to have an Indian tribe encumber this project. we're sacrificing Kansas land for efficiency because the electric companies within that Southwest Power Pool don't want to do the legal hurdles to get through Oklahoma. And that's affecting Kansas to no benefit. The comment the man from Evergy said a little bit ago that they will repair things to as good or better shape. When you tear through the southern Flint Hills of Kansas, these native rangelands will never heal in our lifetime or our children's lifetime. There are millions of acres of CRP throughout the state that prove just that. There is no way to restore soil structure, plant community, grazability, tolerance, or even manage the infiltration of water under those areas. So these have long-lasting impacts that will last for hundreds of years on our land, on our businesses, on our cattle production. Also, plenty of studies show that cattle reproduction is decreased under these large transmission lines. This is where I think you guys should choose another route that stays along a highway corridor, an already existing right-of-way, or if this is supposed to go down into Oklahoma and service Oklahoma, take it straight south into Oklahoma and let this line that travels east and west travel across Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Bogner. Do we have Jim Bogner? I thought I saw someone moving toward the microphone. All right. The next name I have, I don't think it's the same. It's a James Bogner. They left. Okay, thank you. I've got another Bogner, but I'm guessing maybe they left. It looks like a Tricia Bogner. I'm going to assume they left unless someone pops up. Okay. Dane Horst.
My name's Dane Horsch. I have some farm ground along Drury Road on this. I've got several things here. I'll be quick. First off, let me say this. We've established that they're a for-profit company. We've established that they have a stock. So when they do the egress, ingress, they put a power line on our farm ground. They give us a one-time payment. They affect the value of it. They have something for that, guys. It's called a royalty payment. When somebody's got something going across your ground and they make money on it year after year after year after year after year after year after year for the next 100 years, and you get nothing, that's not right. That's not fair. They call those royalty payments. If they're for profit company and they're publicly traded, they need to make a royalty payment to everybody's ground they cross. That should not even be open to conversation. That should be point blank. That's like saying, hey, we want to drill for an oil well on your ground, but if we hit a gusher, we're just going to give you a one-time payment because we're drilling the hole on your ground. There's absolutely no different. Guys, use some common sense here. Second off, there should not be any of these transmission lines on county roads. On county roads in Sumner County, every 6 miles, there's a county road, and those are the best roads. Those are the roads they keep maintained. Those are all the roads that if anybody wants to develop in the country, that they go and build a house. I've got a farm ground on a county road that I'm partial owner on. I've bought the parts of it from somebody else. I'm acquiring it all, and I'm overpaying for it because it's family and with the intention of building a house there. And now you have just ruined what I'm building the house for. And do I go to my brothers and sisters and say, hey, I know I way overpaid you guys for this because I was going to build a house there. but hell, you got to give me my money back. You can't do that. Come on. So, and then on my ground where they're going to do this pole, it's going to be a double pole. So if they do, so I've already got a power line on my ground. Now they're going to put an out of the power line on my ground. They're basically going to make my field worthless 120 feet out. Not even going to be able to use it. Again, common sense, common sense. Where's some common sense in here? Next thing. I've talked to people in here tonight, and I've talked to other people. I've talked to several people who have dealt with Evergy on another transmission line, and Evergy's oversight is way lacking, to say the least. Evergy has lied to people. They've, I've asked, I don't know how many people tonight, what percentage of this $498 million project is going to the landowners? Nobody answers me. I can't understand that. Why? And I can't understand when I talk to my friends and my neighbors, and because guys, we're going to eat this. Everybody come to reality. You're going to eat it. It's going to be on your property, whether you want it or not. So look at the guy beside you and say, is it fair for me to get $200,000 and fair for you to get 20? What's fair for all of us? What is fair if we're all going to eat it, and we're going to, like I said, we're going to, there's no way around it. Why are these guys going around and negotiating with people and offering one guy, telling him, I'm going to give you, I know two neighbors that were dealt with before by this company where they got ground side by side. One neighbor was told by their landman, either accept your payment or you can go to eminent domain and we'll get you nothing. And they wrote that guy a check for $27,000 because he believed the lies. His neighbor got 180. Where do you say to these guys, it's a, $498 million project. Is 10% of it allowed for the landowners? Okay, it's going to impact some of us more than others. Let's again, what's wrong with a little bit of common sense here, people? So say if it's $1 million a mile or whatever it's going to be, you're going to get 10% of that from 8 to 12%, depending on what your impact is. You're going to get a minimum of 8%, and what your maximum impact is. If you got more poles, you're going to get 12%. And I hear all this hogwash, and I'm passionate about this. So yeah, there's disgust in my voice. Yes, there is. But you hear all this hogwash. Well, everybody's ground's worth different. Are you telling me this guy's ground was worth $27,000 and his neighbor's was worth 180? Come on. What's fair and equitable about that? They're robbing the people they can rob, and the people that they have to treat fair, they're having to treat fair. Well, where's the ethics in a company like that? Who's their oversight? Who's watching what they're doing? I want what's right for me. I understand I'm going to get this on my ground. I was joking with one of the guys there earlier, and I hope they carry through with it, and we're trying to get it moved. But he goes, well, where would you want this? And I'd say, well, I want another 100 foot to the east, so it'll be on my neighbor's property. Then I said, that's not what I want. I want it to go right on the property line to where it's equal to his property and equal to my property. And I want him to get the same amount of money I'm going to get for putting it on my ground. Again, people, you're all going to eat it. You're all going to eat it. Somebody needs to make this company do what's fair and equitable for all the people in here. And number one is, like I said, they are a publicly traded company. They are a publicly traded company. So that means what do we do when somebody's got something on your land and they make money on it year after year, month after month? They pay you a royalty. How hard is that to figure out? Let's get down to a little bit of common sense. And I'm sorry, and I'll get off my high horse.
Thank you very much. Bill Miller.
Yes, my name is Bill Mueller. I live in the 12,000 block of 242nd Road southeast of Winfield. And I certainly want to thank the KCC for hosting these hearings. They have been helpful because they have provided a lot of information that I didn't previously know, and it will help me to formulate my response to the Evergy proposal. Despite frequently disagreeing with them, I do appreciate the Evergy staff explaining their position on these various issues, and I can use that information in my response also, because I will submit a more detailed written response. And I certainly urge everyone who has concerns here today to please do so, or also do so that the KCC will have as much information as possible to help in making their decision. I would like to just highlight a few of my major concerns this evening. Of course, went to the meeting in Chautauqua County last night, and I note that the significant number of persons both here and in Chautauqua County who have expressed similar concerns, which the project tends to violate, at least in many areas that the KCC has previously stated are its priorities, specifically staying away from homes, which I got to admit they are paying attention to that, placing lines along established transportation corridors, and staying in the borders of property lines. In our case, in numerous neighbors, which you've heard of already, the proposed route runs right through the middle of a lot of our property. In that case, it runs right through some pristine virgin native grass pastures and hay meadows and across large unencumbered cultivated fields through which there is no current road access. I won't go into some of it, but Kevin McFarland just highlighted a lot of that also, and the same issue pertains to us. Thus, and this so doing causes significant damage to both the native grass pastures and meadows and also the cultivated lands. Thus, we certainly would encourage them to strongly consider trying to utilize existing highway corridors for the basis of these lines. While they've talked about that Kansas will receive some benefit from this line, there's been a lot of question how much and where it is. It's very obvious that a big share of the proceed or property from this will be, or benefit from this will be for the state of Oklahoma, in which case we question, as has previously been brought up, if we can't use the highway corridors to get the line where it needs to go straight south from Garden Plain to the state of Oklahoma and somewhere across there. Evergy staff has already admitted, or last night, that it would take too long and apparently be more expensive to Evergy to try to get the necessary permits to go through Osage County. And I can understand that. And in their respect, obviously, it appears a lot quicker and cheaper to just run over us. But if this product or project is as important as it's claimed to be, it should be worth the time and expense to do it, and however it should most appropriately be done. However, another reasonable route that should be at least considered, and they indicated that they looked at it but immediately rejected it for a couple of reasons, but that is right along the Kansas-Oklahoma line. Except for two areas, that's the very south side of IXL, south of our Kansas City, and Elgin over in Chautauqua County. That area is very open with minimum dwellings and would be a lot of wide open space. I do understand that the Evergy concerns that some areas down there are difficult to access and are rough ground to get through, and it would at least cause them greater cost, and that's the primary concern. If it's that important that we have this project, then I think it's better we deal with those kind of issues than just running over the farmers and ranchers up here in our area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mary Kate Jackson. She may have left. Mary Buffo.
Hi, I'm Mary Buffo. I grew up in Cowley County, and I own a piece of property right across the river from where I grew up in Sumner County. I live in Valley Center, so I travel an hour to go and do chores down at my farm. I do rent it out for a little bit of field crop and cattle grazing. My farmers are here tonight. My farmers live about 7 miles east of me, and somehow, some way, this nasty pole design goes past their properties as well, 7 miles away. So it affects a lot of people who are close, a lot of families. It goes across the river and impacts my brother's place. I want to start off with the mission statement for the mission part of the conservation division of the KCC. It's to protect correlative rights and environmental resources. This is done in part by preventing waste and enforcing regulations that provide guidelines of producing resources efficiently. So when we get to the waste, I think you've heard eloquently from all of these people who are affected by the waste that they feel is coming to their land. Now, I appreciate the passion of one of the earlier speakers, but I'm not taking this as a rollover that it's coming. I have faith in my God that this is not the best answer and it is not coming. The Buffalo Flats Transmission Project is using outdated infrastructure. What I mean by that is these poles and lines, the delivery system is from 1965 for the 345 kVs. Making the introduction of higher capacity line was in 1965. So they are using technology that is 60 years old. There have been no improvements to this type of project. And for 60 years, the Kansas electric companies have been inflicting scars across the landscape of Kansas. And now they wish to subject the people to a brand new 133-mile scar. Wetlands, prairie farmlands, bald eagle nesting sites, century farms, you've heard all the things this is going to impact. 2 days ago, I walked my property in Sumner County and checked on a pond. My husband and I saw about 100 mallard ducks. This is not far from where Evergy wants to put their line. There's also a wetland on that property. If anyone from the KCC would like to come and tour that area of Sumner County, I would love to take you on a foot tour. There's even an original buffalo wallow still in that property, virgin prairie grass. There are 7,400 plus miles already existing in Kansas. There's 2 to the west of Sumner County. There's the one that my friend and neighbor Rod told you about that goes to the east side of Wichita. Those are options. I was always told that you waste not, want not. Why cannot these transmission lines be refitted? You know, I had 3 C-sections and the doctor didn't go and impose a brand new scar every time. He utilized the area that was already damaged and scarred. Kansas, as you guys know, we are already on the edge of cutting technology. And yeah, I'm talking about the deep fusion in Parsons, Kansas that you guys have already approved. First in the nation. Kansas is first in the nation on this new technology. And Evergy is simply racing with an outdated system to be the first to provide energy. I'm afraid that this deep fusion is going to be up and ready to run before these guys ever get that line done and leave the scar behind. The last thing Kansas needs is a 130-mile line of butt-ugly poles and devastation to transport Kansas-generated electricity to 2 other states, Oklahoma and Missouri. Tell them to revamp their existing lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Allen.
Thank you. I'm Todd Allen with Val Energy Incorporated. I'm the president of the company out of Wichita, Kansas. And we are an oil and gas exploration company that's been working in Cowley County for for at least 10 to 12 years. On the proposed map, we are predominantly exploring in the number 8 area. And I was contacted 2 days ago by J.O. Brown, the land and mineral owner, that this line was being proposed across his property, more specific sections 34 and 35 of 33 South 5 East. That is a Mississippi oil and gas field that was developed in the 70s. There's probably 50 wells across that property. And I've been actively re-drilling that in the last 3 years. I've got 9 new wells on it. I've got 30 more wells platted without going beyond the limits of this specific acreage. There's 2,800 acres total. From 2002 to 2015, I personally owned and ran 8 drilling rigs across western Kansas, northern Oklahoma, eastern Colorado, and the tip of Nebraska. And I dealt with our rigs that were 105 feet tall, drilling next to high-powered transmission lines. We drilled for Enron, we drilled for Oxy USA, we drilled for Pioneer Natural Resources, as well as local Wichita companies in Oklahoma and Tulsa and Oklahoma City companies. So we saw how the oil companies were encumbered. We also saw how we, as the contracting company to the oil company, was encumbered, because no one wants a 105-foot steel tower sticking 150 feet from a KVA line of this magnitude. Lightning jumps pretty far. Well, I think high power lines could probably jump pretty far too. Where this map was presented to me tonight, and what Mr. Brown has told me, who's left, the line goes directly over top of a new well that I drilled last year. And so if you've got a 35-foot height, but you've got a 20-foot limit, I'm not able to pull that well to service and pull the equipment out of the ground, because the service rig's going to be 60 feet tall, let alone develop the offset acreage to the north, south, east, and west of this right of way or easement, because the setbacks that are required. And we ran into this all over western Kansas. You might have a 175-foot right of way, but then they would have a requirement that you stayed another 150 or 200 foot either direction of that. So now all of a sudden you've got a swath. And I heard a comment that they don't have control of use of outside. I've experienced it all over western Kansas. So in those contracts, they did have control outside of the easement. And we even had people coming out telling us to move the drilling rig and presenting a copy of the easement saying you're too close. So I've had this rodeo before, and I don't want to experience it down here. Mr. Brown has left, but he is very concerned if they take a approximate 300, 400 foot swath through the middle of his land, that's 300 to 400 foot that I'm not going to be able to drill on with an ongoing drilling program, successfully drilling and continuing to drill probably over the next 10 years. So he's going to be damaged even more on the minerals that don't get developed. I'm familiar with the case in Barber County, the Hummin Oil Corporation, that had an existing field that was producing out of the Lansing, Kansas City zone at approximately 3,400 foot. They'd never drilled deeper. Oil was being found all over that country at 4,700 foot. The company came in, wrote the easements, restricted the drilling, and that ended up in litigation. And Tom Rhodes, an attorney in Wichita, handled that. And it went all the way, from what I understand, because Hummin Corporation was damaged, and the landowner joined the suit because they were damaged because they couldn't develop their deep mineral rights. So from what I'm hearing tonight, there's a lot of opposition to this, but there's also people saying just move the damn line. And Mr. Brown's told me that from the map, there's a house out there, and they should be aware of it because he had a helicopter flying the land, and he also had people out there surveying. And from his estimation, this line goes within somewhere between 50 and 200 feet of the house that his son lives in on this property. And he's opposed to that. So I'm speaking from the oil and gas exploration standpoint that I'm going to be damaged and not be able to develop 30 to 40 more wells in the center corridor of this area. And he's going to be damaged because his minerals aren't going to be exploited all the way down to the basement, which is what I'm drilling to. So I think compromise is available here, but I think that Evergy did not use the right approach to this because they gave no consideration to the existing oil and gas fields. I've got 60 some wells down through this number 8 box right now. I've been in business for 38 years and I landed in Cowley County in 2012 and I've been drilling it consecutively ever since. I've got property to the east of this, and there's the shorter ranch that Rainy Oil's developing and CMX Corporation's out of Wichita. From this map, the line goes right straight into them. They aren't here to represent themselves. I've got the Horse Creek Ranch, which is now owned by Drummond's to the north. It was Carol House's property. I've got 9 wells on it and going to continually drill on that 1,600 acres. So this is an oily area that probably needs a lot of consideration from the mineral owner, the surface owner, and where this line goes to not encumber. Brian Richardson was here. Brian Richardson's got production in the same area. Brian knows the limits that he may have put on him if these easements are signed so that he can't develop the properties that he's drilled or that he owns. So I think there needs to be a lot more consideration than just saying this is a proposed route. We're coming in, we'll either do you by a lease or we'll do you by condemnation. Because the value here has not been even considered, and they admitted that when they said they did the proposal. So the minerals don't get exploited, the land value doesn't come back up higher with oil production on it. J.O. Brown's had oil production on him since the 70s, 2,800 acres. Paid a lot of revenue. Now he's getting even more revenue out of my wells because the original wells are down to 1 or 2 barrels a day, and my wells are coming on a lot better than that. So he's seeing the value out of exploration. $55 oil with Donald Trump may be a while, boys, but I'm telling you, it's going to go back to $100 one of these days, and they'll be down here leasing your land $200 and $300 an acre again, and your minerals will be getting developed. This business is cyclical. And I've been through the 80s boom and bust. I've been through the 015 boom and bust. I know how this works, and you just have to be patient because it's going to cycle again. And when it does, it benefits the landowner. So I think the commission needs to take all this into consideration before they approve this particular route. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Andra.
Thank you, commissioners. I did speak last night about a few things, and I've discovered a few more today. My name's Michael Andra. I live near Wichita, raised at Conway Springs. One thing I have prided myself on was supporting my fellow landowners. I own the largest radio station in this region, 107.9. I had a small part in stopping Evergy and Nextera with their lithium battery facility by Oxford. I became aware this morning that Evergy and their partner, collaborator Nextera have options on land in Cowley County to put in lithium battery plants. There's several properties I checked on that they have options to buy land next to Evergy sites. These power lines are kind of like when the railroads went in. When the railroads went in, what came next? There'd be a grocery store, maybe a livery stable, maybe a grain elevator. When power lines go in, what's been following them? Wind turbines, solar farms, then lithium battery energy storage farms. So I'd like all the landowners to be aware. And there's county commissioners here. Sumner County, thank goodness. We ran a lot of PSA commercials to inform the people, and our commissioners of Sumner County unanimously voted it down over the recommendation of the Planning Commission. I commend them for having that courage. So this morning, I went to my civil engineer. Evergy has a lot of easements in Sedgwick County, but Sedgwick County isn't like Sumner, Cowley, and Chautauqua. The Register of Deeds at Sedgwick County has nothing. There's nothing there. There's no books. They've given those books over to a title company. So I went to my civil engineer and had him research. We looked up some of Evergy's easements. You know, they sit up there and talk how fair they are with everybody and all. I asked my civil engineer, let's find the worst case of landowner abuse that we can find this morning. We found a case where Evergy purchased an easement, not with eminent domain, purchased it outright from a little lady. They purchased an easement for 1.25 miles of transmission line across her property. Right away. They then added to the easement ingress egress easement, a second aspect of the easement over her entire property. They then also included a control of use over her property. 1.25 mile transmission line. My civil engineer was amazed because he in his past has never seen an easement that actually said how much they paid. It normally says $1 and other good and valuable considerations. This little lady, Evergy abused her so bad, they paid her $150. That's it. That's how evil these people have been in the past. And it's my mission and my radio station's mission to make these people pay. This line will probably go in. It might be altered, but they need to pay what they're taking, because once they take it, they've got a huge asset. A huge asset. Just for instance, on another transmission line they were part of with Sunflower Electric, per 1/2 mile, this is all cultivated land, all about the same quality land. Some people got 12,000 a 1/2 mile. Some got 40,000. And then up towards Conway Springs, where the line went on and was in Evergy's name, some got 50,000 per 1/2 mile. The line then that went from Conway Springs later to Riverdale, some people got 90,000. So my mission is to get the word out to all the landowners that they need to unify. Evergy's mission is to divide and conquer, to meet with every one of you separate and try to weasel something out of you. But the mission needs to be to stick together, make them pay. They've got plenty of money. And I'm here to support the landowners, and God bless you all for what you're going through.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Andrew was the last name on my list, and I don't see any hands online, but I want to pause here. If there is anybody that has decided they'd like to make a public comment before we conclude, let me just pause and see if anybody wants to walk to the microphone. Good. Well, go to the microphone so people can hear you online, please. Thank you. And just repeat your name for the record.
My name's Dane Horsch, and the one thing I wanted is, again, on what's fair and equitable to everybody. Everybody remember that this company wants to buy your farm ground and quote you farm ground prices, and the day they have it, it's commercial property. That is so unjust and unfair and unethical of any company out there to do that. It's horrible. That to say I'm going to put in a transmission line that's going to be worth $500 million, but what's farm ground worth? And I want to go to all the governing bodies and get all the ground appraised, and we're appraising it for farm ground. Go to where the cities where anybody develops ground or anywhere somebody develops ground. As soon as the developer's buying it, that ground quadruples, goes by 10 times in value. So these guys are stealing your ground for pennies on the dollar, and then they're turning it into commercial property.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Wave your hand at me if you don't want me to conclude yet. Okay. All right. Not seeing any more hands. I want to remind everybody that actually, IT, can you put up the slide with the information on making public comments? Do you have that available? All right. I do want to remind everyone that the public comment period is open until 5 p.m. on January 23rd. The materials handed out this evening and shown on the screen will outline the 3 ways in which comments may be submitted for consideration. And to remind you again, those written comments through the phone comments, however they're made, those carry the exact same weight as comments that were made live here tonight. The commission will hold an evidentiary hearing on this matter on March 11th and 12th, beginning at 10 a.m. in our first floor hearing room at our headquarters in Topeka. And that hearing will also be broadcast on the YouTube channel, just like our hearings tonight. And the commission is scheduled to issue a final decision in this matter on or before May 13th of this year. This concludes the public hearing. Thank you for your comments and your attendance. We're adjourned.